All right, people, we made it. It's been 4 months in the making since we started this all the way back in September, but we finally made it. The season 1 finale of Lost. Exodus. 3 parts. 3 massive, action-packed episodes, all to build to an ending, sort of. I guess you'll have to find out in season 2. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, this is going to be our last episode of Talkin' Lost for 2 weeks. The next 2 weeks, we're going to be hitting the Super Bowl and Captain America Brave New World, and we will be back to start with season 2 at the end of February. And Luke, once we get started with season 2 at the end of February, we are not stopping until the end of 2020.
Well, I hope so, because waiting for Lost all week is like, it makes my whole week better. Like, I get to watch Lost at the end of the week. Great. Now for 2 weeks, I can't.
We've turned you into a Lost junkie. Don't worry, you'll. I'm sure you'll be able to find plenty of stuff to keep you occupied in the meantime, if you could resist binging before we get into season 2.
1 week, I'll just reveal. Oh, sorry, Dom. I've watched the entire show.
Yeah, and I'll be like, Luke, you were supposed to wait, and you're like, I'm sorry, I couldn't. It was too good. Oh, man. Wait until we get to the last 3 seasons. That's with the shortened episode counts, too, when they go from, like, 23 to, like, 17 an episode. It's going to be crazy. Yeah, all of that. But like I said, yeah, fuck it. Let's just get into it. This is the Lost Season 1 finale, Exodus. I had more that I was going to get into with that preamble, but I immediately forgot because I'm just really excited to talk about it, honestly.
That happens every time.
Yeah, it does. It's going to be a common, frequently recurring trend. Like I said, we'll be back to review some movies. We'll still be doing movie reviews throughout the year, but like I said, it's just going to be a matter of, like I said, Lost is priority, center stage right now. We both made a big commitment when we both signed up for this, and listen, I did every episode of Game of Thrones, and even though this has twice the amount of episodes of Game of Thrones, this is one of those shows that are worthy. Because it's never fun to do, like, a perfect show, you know, like a Breaking Bad or The Wire or The Sopranos, because everybody knows how great those shows are. Everybody's already talked about how great those shows are, and at this point, all that we would be doing is just sucking those shows' dicks, you know, like there's only so much more that we can say about those shows that haven't already been said. But with a show like this, a show that has had, let's say, more of a problematic history, a little bit of a problematic reaction, people weren't exactly as hot on it, but have maybe come around more so on it with time, you know, those are the types of shows that I feel like are worthy of a re-examination. Game of Thrones, that was the exception, because that was more so just me needing to go through my therapy of like, oh my god, what happened to the best show ever? Why did it fall so far? And then now, you know, we have House of the Dragon and spinoff, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is all part of their game plan, honestly. But Lost, man, this has been a really, really special ride. And the thing that rewatching these last how long have we been doing this now? 21, 22 episodes? I know that we batched a couple of episodes with the pilot in this episode, but the thing that really has been really special about this is realizing how unique of a first season this was, because so few shows are able to hit the ground running right with their first season. You know, so many shows, they take a little bit of time in order to really build up their footing, you know, figure out what exactly they're going. They usually really don't hit their stride until about season like 3, 4 usually. Lost, man, it hit the ground running as soon as it came out of the gates in season 1. I really must say that of all of my favorite shows, I really think this has the best first season, debut season of any show. And I'm throwing that in with the likes of Breaking Bad, Sopranos, Game of Thrones, some of my favorite sitcoms of all time, How I Met Your Mother, Community, Parks and Rec. Well, we all know that Parks and Rec didn't actually become Parks and Rec until season 3. But the point stands is that in terms of having the perfect blend of mystery, action, and suspense, intrigue, and most importantly, character building. You know, like really the fact that they were able to build up all of these 14 core characters that you had in that main cast to the point where literally one half of these 3 episodes is just dedicated to kind of following all of these characters in their last couple moments right before we board the plane. That's the thing about the flashbacks that's so interesting in this finale, is that the flashbacks don't really add anything necessarily new about the characters we didn't already know. It's kind of like just I don't even know how to describe it, but it's this interesting way of suspense building where you're following each of them in like their last couple moments right before they're about to board the plane, and they're all like edited in sparsely at the right moments as they're kind of all going through everything that they're going through on the island. So I figured that as far as how we would break this episode, or rather this massive juggernaut of an episode down, is we would kind of just run through the flashbacks, you know, kind of compare them to previous flashbacks that we've had before we hit everything that happens on the island, because on the island, once things start going, they kind of do not stop across these 3 episodes until we end on, again, the first of a couple of major season finale cliffhangers. So before we get started, like, what are your thoughts just after having gone through now an entire season of Lost?
Well, you did tell me before that the Lost finales do not disappoint, and this was definitely the case. And I think the strength of the show is kind of in its simplicity. Like, just start with the concept. Okay, a plane crashes on a deserted island. What happens with the people? What kind of hierarchy is created? And then you throw in the polar bears, the smoke monster. We finally got something more from that.
Yeah, we did.
And I was like, finally.
Yeah, we did.
But yeah, to start with the simplicity and then start with the freaky stuff, like just foundation, and then you go, because this first season it's all about just establishing everyone. Of course, I mean, new characters in the next season. Obviously, I think we saw some of them already in this finale.
You may have. Certain Fast and Furious cast
I was like,
you were not expecting to pop up.
Like, what is she doing?
Like, what is she doing here?
but yeah, I feel like we'll get to season 2, obviously. But I think now it's the show that they really wanted to show, like this secret island with this freaky stuff. Like I say, Succession. The show really starts at episode 6 after the vote of no confidence meeting. Like the Spider-Verse trilogy, I think they wanted to tell that Miles is an anomaly story, and they needed that first movie to introduce the concepts. And Lost is kind of the same with this first season. And with the flashbacks, like we'll get to it in depth. But I thought, like, it's just a reminder that these are just regular people who happen to be on the plane at the same time, like people running into each other. There's the Shannon's like, hey, there's some Arab guy, like he left a bag, and the Arab's like, oh, that's not so soon after
9/11. That's the thing too that people forget. By the time this show ends, it had only been like 3-4 years since 9/11. So yeah, anti-Arab sentiment was still very high.
Yeah, and just how they run into each other, that's enjoyable. Like Hurley and Charlie at the elevator, and Jack and Locke with this small visual interaction on the plane. Just
really beautiful, touching moments as well. And even though nobody dies in that scene, again, they bring back the Giacchino score that, again, kind of became synonymous with Lost that they played during Boone's funeral, Life and Death, as it's become known. And man, it's just it's one of those few pieces of music where, again, you just hear it and you immediately like just feel something. And now that you've spent all this time with these characters, and now that you know them, you know, now that it's kind of like taking you back to kind of the before, you know, back when they were still like regular people in their regular lives, just getting on another plane, you know, and it's kind of insane, like following each one of them throughout this airport as they're kind of going off to their respective destinies, you know, with their past constantly trying to come back to get them. It's all kind of working synonymously, where it's serving so many different functions at once, where it's simultaneously it's fan service, if you could even make that argument, which I don't even know if that terminology applies here.
I don't think fan service existed in 2004.
It didn't. It's a clip show, I guess you could say, is another term that sort of applies here, because again, the things that you're watching in the flashbacks don't necessarily pertain to the plot per se, or are adding anything new that you haven't already seen, but it's kind of
there's a few,
yes,
with Jin. Especially,
yeah. But like I said, but even that, in hindsight, once you realize that, like, oh, even that very interesting interaction didn't matter once you realize that they never made it to LA, you know? And it's kind of it all ties in again with everything that Lindelof is doing with the show and with all of his subsequent shows, in the sense of he is comparing these people's, like I said, I've always talked about how Lindelof's focus is always on the examination of overcoming trauma in the face of life and death, and whether or not like death is real per se, you know, or simply just another way of moving on. And so the way that he's able to kind of still juxtapose all of their lives that they had beforehand. I'm just going to start running through the flashbacks in order to kind of
I don't have them all in order.
Well, I have them listed off here, basically. Right. Opening scene of episode 1, Michael and Walt arguing in the hotel room before they get on the plane. Walt just wants to watch some Power Rangers. Michael's trying to get some sleep, once again indicating that the two of them, at this point in their lives, were still not exactly on good terms, considering that Michael had never really even seen Walt up until this point. And you realize that them getting on the plane was really their first chance of actually spending time together as father and son, which once again ties up all their time on the island together. Jack at the airport bar drinking. Our first season 2 edition, who we get in this episode, Ana Lucia Cortez, portrayed by Michelle Rodriguez, in between Fast and Furious movies, because famously she did the first one, and then the second two, the second one only which featured Brian O'Connor, the third one which didn't feature any of the main cast members. So she filmed this in between that movie, and then we'll get to why she ended up leaving the show in season 2, because she is a main cast member in season 2. Comes back obviously for 4.
She has to go shoot Avatar.
Yeah, exactly. Then she had to leave that to go shoot Avatar before she came back, and has been with the Fast and Furious movie since. So they have a nice conversation. They introduce each other. She reveals that she knows that his dad died because she overheard him, and that she hates flying, but that the worst part is over. Again, anonymous foreshadowing, or is it? Sawyer interrogated at the police station, not arrested for murder, but instead for getting into a bar fight with somebody who, as it turned out, was the Minister of Agriculture. And what's it called?
That's just typical Sawyer luck. Like, he happens to punch a government official.
Exactly. Of course, and because of course Sawyer was going to punch a government official. The police officer reveals he knows his real name, has him deported, tells him to never step foot in Australia again, to which Sawyer says, "Don't worry, I ain't ever coming back here." Kate with the marshal, they're about to go through security's going through the contents of the gun case. He pulls out the little toy plane. The marshal kind of summarizes everything that Kate was up to in the flashbacks, where again, she got, She got Tom killed, and so as a result, orchestrated that entire bank heist just to be able to get the plane, causing, instigating Kate to attack him, and reveals that's why I need 5 guns. Shannon in the waiting area reading a book. Saeed asks if she could watch his bag. She ignores him. Boone comes back, tells him that they couldn't get them in the first class because she got into an argument with the gate agent. Boone and her argue about her being useless. She goes and reports Saeed to airport security, and I'm like, oh, that's fucked. Once again, reminding us that Shannon is the worst. Sun brings Jin coffee. Overhears an American couple mocking them. She obviously understands them, knows that Jin has no idea what he's doing. It's funny because when she spilled the coffee on Jin, I wasn't sure if she was gonna go and chew that American couple out or not, or if that was like legitimately a moment of her like just being so nervous that she knocked the coffee.
She's above that.
Right, I figured as much. But anyways, that leads Jin to go into the bathroom. Sorry, as I fast forward, that leads Jin to go into the. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through. So that leads Jin to go into the bathroom to clean his shirt. He's cornered by a seemingly normal guy who first speaks to him in English and then starts speaking to him in Korean, reveals that he works for Sun's father, and is like, yeah, you're just going to deliver this package, and you ain't going nowhere. You are never going to be free. You are never going to escape from your previous life. Then we cut to Saeed being let go by airport security, and the airport security reminds him, is like, sir, you did leave your bag unattended. Just being like, yeah, this wasn't completely racially motivated. That would be suspicious regardless. It just, sucks for your skin color, obviously. Charlie, searching for heroin in a hotel room, finds it. The attic that he sleeps with beats him up, trying to get one last bump. She's like, oh yeah, I really, really care about your shitty badge. She even gets the name wrong. Back to Michael and Walt at the airport. Michael calls his mom, begging her to try and take and raise Walt, saying that he's not ready for it. Walt's right behind him. You think he overhears him, but you're not quite sure. You're like, okay, he just asked for more batteries for his Nintendo. Michael's trying to make small talk conversation with Walt. Walt's ignoring him the entire time. Real quick, do you think that Walt overheard him on the phone, or no? You think that, and you think he's just playing dumb, or you don't think he heard anything?
I think he did overhear, and he has this sort of understanding, like, hey, none of us are happy about this outcome, and just kind of move on, sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Then we cut to part 3. Hurley wakes up in the hotel to see, of course, naturally, like all of his luck up until that point, all of the power in his room is out. and he has no idea. And of course, he's running late. Again, I have the sequence of events here in which he tries to get out. He's trying to get back to the plane so he can get back to the States for his mom's birthday. He briefly sees Charlie in the elevator, which is of course full of people, so he has to run down the stairs. Grabs his car. The car runs out of juice right as he's about to get to the airport. He gets to the airport. He manages to check in. He's forced to buy another ticket because of his weight. Australia requires him to buy 2 tickets for both seats next to him. Realizes that he's at domestic, not international terminal. Has to make a break, run to the international terminal. Tries to cut through the line of security. Cuts past Arts. Arts calls him out. Security forces him to wait at the back of the line. He makes it through. Pays an old dude $1,600 for his scooter to try and make it through. Barely makes it to the plane. The flight attendant, who is literally just closed the doors, takes mercy on him, allows him on the plane. Could that be what caused the plane to crash? We don't know. He gives her a big hug before he finally makes it onto before he makes it onto the plane. Finally, we see Locke, who's waiting at the gate, presumably right before Hurley gets there, or a couple hours beforehand. They say that they're not able to get him on the plane with the wheelchair, and because the wheelchair that they use to get people on is not accessible, 2 of the attendants offer to carry him on. He begrudgingly accepts, but you can tell that this is a big blow to his pride. And of course, he drops one of the manuals before he drops the manual that he's trying to read, and of course he can't reach it. And then finally, we have our final montage of all of the survivors who we know up until that point getting on the plane. They're all seated and boarded. We got one brief shot of Claire as we see her getting on the plane, which was, again, we saw previously in her solo episode, Raised by Another. And yeah, like I said, you had life and death all playing very conspicuously around them as they're all kind of getting ready to board the plane. You see Jack having that one facial moment with Locke. Right before, obviously, inevitably, the plane takes off and takes them to where they need to go. So, like I said, it's very brief. It's very montagey. But again, I love getting to spend a brief minute with all these guys, like kind of, again, reminding us of like who they were before they got to the island. And it's really, really good stuff. It's really, really good stuff. Probably my favorite set of flashbacks. Also, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the only episode where we get flashbacks of all the characters before we get to, obviously, the final couple of episodes, you know? Like I said,
I was surprised, like this onslaught of flashbacks, like 1, 2, boom, boom. Okay, we're going through all of them.
But it all worked as far as like seamlessly being edited in with the action going on the island.
Yeah, again, they're just masters at that dual timeline presentation.
Yep. And you're going to see once we surpass the flashbacks, once we get past season 3, oh man, they take that dual story structure to a whole new level, is all that I'm going to say. So, without further ado, let's get to the island and what's going on. So like I said, we've been building up to it for 22 episodes. The raft is pretty much ready to go. Everybody's getting ready. Walt wakes up, goes to, use the bathroom. And of course, who comes out of the jungle? Russo. She's back. Also, I realized that, when I first started talking about Russo, I neglected to inform that the actress who portrays her, Mira Furlan, unfortunately passed due to, I believe it was complications with either cancer or pneumonia, one of the two, back in 2021. So that was one of a couple of lost alumni that unfortunately we've lost along the way, where, again, lost surprising amount of longevity with this cast. I believe a majority of these cast members are still alive. I got to check and see if the actor, I believe the actors who play Penelope and Charles, who are 2 older characters that come in later on in the show's run. I don't remember if they're still alive or not, but the majority of the cast members, I believe, are still alive. So that's that's impressive, to say the least. But so Walt wakes up to take a piss. He sees Russo coming out of the woods. The survivors are all getting they're like, oh no, what's she doing here? A few of them survive her, a couple of them recognize her. Hurley, Saeed, characters who've had interactions with her, and she gives them the ominous warning. She's like, the others, they're coming for you. You only have 3 choices. Yes, you only have one of 3 choices. Run, hide, or die. Title card. Boom.
Sawyer had a great line. It's like, it's got to be the French chick. Like,
Sawyer, obviously, once again, great. What's it called? Russo, basically, and then after the title card, she gives some more context as far as everything, how she originally came to the island pregnant, gave birth to her daughter on the island before the others took her, and the omen being a pillar of black smoke coming out of the woods. So naturally, of course, the survivors are like, okay, like, what are we gonna do? Jack and Locke, that's the other thing too that really, really sets this episode apart, is this is like the pinnacle of the Jack and Locke debate that's gonna kind of drive through the rest of the show, where basically Jack naturally thinks she's crazy. Locke is like, yeah, she may be crazy, but that doesn't mean that she's lying, especially given that Locke is the one that constantly has to remind them, like, yeah, the others are real and they have attacked us, so we know that they are a thing here. Basically, the whole thing is that Jack is like, look, if we're going to have any chance of getting rescued, we need to get this raft off the island stat. So that leads to them rallying all the rest of the survivors together in order to start getting the raft, lay some tracks in order to get it down to the beach. And then they almost succeed until the mast breaks. Of course, Michael and Sawyer start arguing. They're like, and Michael's like, listen, man, you're barely useful as it is. Sawyer's like, what the hell? This wasn't my fault. And then, of course, as they're arguing, they see the pillar of black smoke in what's it called, in the corner of the island. So
and just seeing that is so
Yeah.
it is real. She's not bullshitting. Like,
yeah, she's not bullshitting.
She's not a completely unreliable narrator.
Yes.
Situation.
Exactly. Yeah. Russo says that while she can vanish right into the jungle, the rest of them can't. This leads to Locke showing a couple of the other survivors. Like I said, up until this point, there's only 3 people who actually know about the existence of the hatch: Locke, Saeed, and Jack. But at this point, they show them the rest of the hatch, and and Jack is immediately like, okay, like, so we do have a means of actually like hiding, and providing shelter, So Jack tells the rest of the survivors that they have a plan, and then in comes Arzt. Oh, poor Arzt. Poor Arzt.
We'll get to him in episode 2.
Yeah, we'll get to him in episode 2. But yeah, man, like I said, there's a reason why if you're not in one of the main credited 14 survivors, you are not long for this world. Corners him. He says he's figured out the plan that they're gonna use the dynamite from the what's it called, that they're going to use the dynamite. That's another point that I forgot. Basically, Locke asks Russo where she got the explosives that she used to booby trap her hideout, and Russo reveals the black rock, and that she can take them there. They don't know what the black rock is. Arzt kind of figures out what the plan is, and he basically forces them to include him. And he's like, considering none of them really know how dynamite works, and that he's coming with them. Michael tells Sawyer that they'll work faster without him, so Sawyer starts cutting up bamboo sticks in order to try and contribute. Jack runs into him, gives him the gun since he figures out that they probably won't see each other before they leave, since Jack's group is leaving to go and get the dynamite, while the rest of the survivors are on the beach. And he tells them that after they push the raft off and after the raft gets off, to evacuate the beach and head towards the caves in order to in order to protect themselves. Sawyer figures that since this is their last encounter, Sawyer does actually something that I was not expecting to, which is Sawyer tells Jack about his last encounter with his dad, and with Jack's dad in the bar, which turns out to be pretty impactful moment, honestly, like, and a moment that a rare moment of humanity too for Sawyer that I was not expecting. And this is like kind of an unexpected bonding moment, the fact that Jack was, again, kind of that guy that was always striving for that last word of approval, from his dad, if his dad telling him that he was proud of him, that he knew, based on the type of character that Christian was, that his dad was never going to give him. And then for it to come from Sawyer, of all places, like at the most unexpected places, it's like, again, these very crazily cathartic moments that really, again, tie together all the storylines that have been building throughout this season. What did you think of that moment?
I think that might be my favorite scene of the whole finale. Just like,
yeah.
Like, Lost is really good at the small emotional moments, but even previously in the episode or a bit after, there's the Walt and Shannon scene where Walt's like, "Hey, can you take care of the dog? Like, maybe you need after."
Yeah, they do a really good job of like really making you be like, "Yeah, this might be the last time that all these guys are like are together, like they
I didn't
this
believe it.
I know
'Cause-
you don't believe it, but I'm saying that, like, imagine in the moment and you're
Yeah.
seeing that montage go through and you're like, oh, like they're gonna get off the island, they're gonna get rescued. This is like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this is gonna be like a fleeting moment in all of their lives that they're just gonna remember before they all go their separate ways. And then, obviously that's not what happens, as we see in the rest of this episode. But yeah, like I said, you have those moments, where Kate offers to go with Jack to the Black Rock to get the dynamite. Charlie's collecting messages from people to put into a bottle in order to take to the real world. So basically the whole thing is, so now you have like this deviation. You have this expedition to the Black Rock, which is comprised of Russo, Jack, Kate, Locke, Hurley, and Arzt. And while everybody else is on the beach preparing to send off the preparing to send them off, Kate doesn't see Sawyer before she ends up leaving. So
I forgot one thing about the Jack and Sawyer thing, because
Yes.
they set that up like however many episodes ago.
yeah, it's been a
like-
while since Sawyer's second episode, Outlaws.
But like Lost being the good show that it is, it does pay off. Like
Yes.
I had forgotten about it, and then
Right.
he reminds me, like, okay, that's a great scene. Like Hurley seeing the numbers, we knew that was gonna happen, and
Right. They paid it
uh,
off.
They paid it off. I'm like, yes.
Yes.
It's so incredibly satisfying.
And it's so funny because, again, this is what I'm talking about with the binge mode in a network TV standard, where, again, if you're watching this week to week, it would be understandable why you would miss certain things. But if you're binging it all together and you do see, no, they did pay off these seeds that they laid along the way, you just had to be paying attention. And again, it is the fact that Lost was this groundbreaking show that was doing this at a time when no other network TV was going on. Because the other thing that I forgot about too during this time period is that, in addition to HBO, obviously, and the rise of shows like The Sopranos, The Wire, Deadwood, Sex and City, in addition to that, you also had the rise of FX and cable, and you had shows like The Shield and 24 premiering. These shows that, again, were also continuing to incorporate, but those were on cable, not like basic network shows. So again, it's once again these things that really show that Lost was ahead of its
Can
time.
you really quickly explain what's the difference between cable and network?
Basically, the difference is that cable you pay extra for. Network is the three basic network shows that if you were to like get any sort of television service, it would be your basic three
Right.
shows: ABC, NBC, and
Okay.
CBS. And then cable would be all the extra shows, your Bravos, your FXs, your ESPN,
And
all
Lost
of that
was a
stuff.
network.
And Lost was a network show that was on
Okay.
ABC. It was a Disney production.
Got it.
So, basically,
We have
so-
those two. We have those
Yes.
two.
Yeah, so that's basically the breakdown, because in fairness, I sometimes get a little bit lost with the explanations myself as well when when I'm trying to break down and delineate, because obviously now in the wake of streaming, all of that seems antiquated. So, what's it called? So the quest for the Black Rock takes off. They start heading off. They stop for a rest. Locke notices some very interesting scratches on Russo's arm, which he asks about. She says that she got them from a bush, which automatically smells like bullshit. Like, I don't know about you, but like that moment when I heard that, yeah, it's like, I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that bushes had claws on them. Those are not like basic scratches. Those are like gouge marks in her arm. So that's automatically like kind of our first indicator that something is rotten in Denmark. Something is not quite as it has been told to us. You have some funny banter back and forth between Arzt and Hurley, where Arzt is trying to like basically essentially justify his character arc, and Hurley's like, what? And it's really funny that like Hurley's the one that's receiving all that. They reach the so-called dark territory, where Russo reveals that this is where her husband Monted lost his arm. Arzt gets scared and runs off. On the beach, Sawyer brings the new bamboo stick to use as a replacement mask, which kind of, restores his good grace with the other two. Back in the jungle, Arzt comes running back, being chased by the smoke monster, who we haven't seen in, it's been a while since we have seen the smoke monster. I think since Hearts and Minds, Boone solo episode way back when is the last time that we saw it. The group hides. Locke and Hurley stand completely still. As the creature retreats, Kate asks Russo what it is, and Russo states that it's a security system for the island. So that's our first indication as far as what the smoke monster might actually be. On the beach, Walt entrusts Shannon with Vincent, saying that he's good to talk to in terms of helping to, overcome trauma and tragedy. So that's once again demonstrating that Walt has really matured as a result of his time on the island. Saeed gives the raft crew the airplane radar, the radio, and some flares, tells them to only turn it on every hour to conserve battery. Sun gives Jin some sheets with English in order to help him with his translations. Jin apologizes to her for everything that they've done. Sun says that he can stay, but Jin says that no, he's going because he's being punished for his actions, and that he's going to save her. The group all comes together. They push the raft off. The raft is officially off. They're going. Vincent, we have this one last moment where Vincent tries to run after Walt. Walt tells him to stay. And in the jungle, the crew reaches the Black Rock, which is revealed to be this ancient Spanish vessel that, that is stranded somewhere in the middle of the jungle. Once again, an indication that who knows where and when the island is in time. And that's kind of the end of part one.
That far inland.
Yeah, exactly. How to far?
They theorize tsunami.
Exactly. It's a couple different things, but like I said, so part one ends. The crew is, like I said, the first of the two storylines have kind of gone. The raft is taken off, and the crew has arrived at the Black Rock in order to get the dynamite that they're going to need to blow in the hatch. So those are kind of like our first two storylines that are set up, which are the crew, which are, like I said, the raft crew, and then the dynamite crew, the Black Rock crew, the hatch crew, whatever you want to call them. And then part two kicks off, and then you have our kind of third tertiary storyline, and you realize the real reason why Russo's with the survivors, which is baby Aaron. So part two kicks off, starts with Aaron crying as everybody's getting ready to evacuate to the caves. Charlie
everyone's super on edge.
Yes,
okay,
understandably
something's
so.
Gonna snap. Like,
yeah,
is someone or
something's
gonna trigger it, and
either way, you know something bad is about to happen. What's it called? Charlie demands a gun to protect Claire. Saeed refuses. The crew starts recovering the dynamite for the Black Rock. Russo leaves. She's like, okay, I basically served my purpose. I'm gone. Locke's like, let her go. Locke theorizes the Black Rock is a mining ship that departed somewhere from Mozambique. They find the dynamite. They bring it outside. Arts is going off and on about how the crew is leaving him out and ignoring him. And
he mentions like, oh, there's 40 other people on this island. Like that's a little bit of a meta.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a meta breaking the fourth wall.
We know that there's 40 people.
Yeah,
but we can't
it's like we get it, but we can't possibly like examine like 40 characters. It's enough that we were able to do it with just these 14. I literally had in parentheses in my notes here, potential commentary. The group carries the dynamite out. He runs up. He tells them that they don't know what they're doing. What's it called? He grabs the dynamite out. He's giving this big long explanation about what dynamite is and how it works. He takes some wet rags. He starts to wrap the dynamite, and of course, naturally, as he's explaining, as things are starting to calm down, boom, he explodes. And
I was just waiting for it. He kept talking. I'm like, okay,
you're like,
the timer has started.
The timer. You're like, we've seen this before. We know how this works out.
But he took the most leaky one as well.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Of the dynamite stick.
It's kind of like a little bit of a thing of where it's like, okay, like you kind of knew that this was gonna happen.
We've run out of dialogue for you.
Exactly. There's only so much that we could give to this guy. So R.I.P. Arts, but at the same time, again, it's a lot more of a comedic death as it is. You know, obviously the characters are taking it seriously, but for us, the viewers, we're like, okay, well, that happened. What's it called? So on the raft, like I said, the raft in this episode is kind of sporadic. It's basically just like them arguing. It's Michael comments how it's possible, how it's possible for an island this big to possibly go unnoticed. They're figuring Sawyer and him are bonding over the radar. Sawyer once again gets to prove himself when they run over a log. What's it called? Oh my God, what's the thing called? The thing at the end.
The rudder.
The rudder. Thank you. Oh my God, the rudder gets detached. Sawyer dives in after it. Manages to grab it. Swims back with it. Michael and Jin throw out a rope to help him back up. So they're able to narrowly avoid being stranded in the middle of the water with steering. Michael and Walt also bond. Michael tells Walt that when Walt asks Michael why he wasn't there for him for the first couple of years of his life when he was born. Michael states that his mom didn't want it, that she thought that she was doing what was best for him, and Walt admits that she was wrong. So that's kind of like a real, like, validating moment for Michael there, where he's like, okay, like, all of the shit that he's been through in order to try and get back his son, it was for something. It wasn't for nothing. So that's kind of all that really happens on the raft in this part. Most of the stuff happens back on the island.
I did write down suspicious log. Where did that come from?
Yes,
exactly. I didn't know there were logs just floating about in the ocean, but I guess there are.
Yes, exactly.
I'm growing too conspiracy theory on the island.
I'm telling you,
power the island has. I thought the island just threw out a log for them to hit and start heading back.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. Let me just say,
my one prediction of them turning up back at the island did not come true, but
they
ran into someone else.
Let's just say that getting to and from the island involves some maybe some more than just taking a boat or a plane.
Yeah,
there,
it's not a question.
It's not exactly something
coordinates.
It's not exactly something that shows up on a map. If you catch my drift, if you will.
I do catch your drift.
Yes. So on the beach, Saeed confronts Shannon, realizes that she's carrying Boone's things, offers to help her, At the Black Rock, Hurley is still processing Art's abrupt departure, blames himself, tells Kate that he's a jinx. Kate says that it was an accident, and Hurley doesn't believe her. Jack and Locke pull the dynamite out of the box slowly, one by one. On the beach, Charlie shows Claire a makeshift carrier that he made. Russo shows up, demanding Saeed. Charlie runs off to find him. Russo asks Claire if she can hold him. Claire immediately, all of a sudden, conveniently has a flashback, realizes that Russo was the one who attacked her, asks her where she got the scratches on her arm. Charlie finds Saeed. They go back to the beach. They find Sun with an unconscious Claire, no Aaron or Russo. Charlie gets mad at Saeed, blames him. Saeed says that Russo's got a head start. They go after her. They realize that, Saeed even says it's like Russo is a grieving mother. She's not thinking rationally. So once again, kind of tying her to Claire. At the Black Rock, Locke suggests that they take 2 sets of dynamite as a contingency if it doesn't work the first time. Of course, more arguing. Jack and Kate argue about who will carry the second set. Locke demands that they draw straws. Hurley very funnily points out a piece of Art's on Jack's shoulder. Kate draws the shortest stick. Walt, on the raft, also, Walt catches Sawyer reading everybody else's letters, calls him out on it, being like, why would you feel if somebody else read your letters? Those things are private. And Sawyer's like, well, only letter I ever wrote was to the man who ruined my life, the man who I'm going to kill. On the island, Saeed and Charlie race for the gun case. Saeed theorizes that Russo is going to trade Aaron for her own child who was taken 16 years ago. Saeed reminds Charlie that it isn't personal. Claire demands to come. They're like, no, that's not a good idea. And she eventually breaks down and tells Charlie, like, you better get him back. Reveals that she's named the baby Aaron. So that's the first time that we hear baby Aaron's name dropped. They run through the jungle. They come across the smuggler's plane where Boone dies. And this is also, again, another big moment where Saeed reveals that it's like, the smuggler's plane, more than likely coming from Africa, it was carrying Virgin Marys containing heroin, completely unaware of Charlie's drug addiction. And that obviously comes back around as well.
Another setup and payoff. Like you set it up in the Boone Locke episode where they find it, and then you're like, oh,
exactly.
Who's the heroin addict?
Who's a heroin addict on the island? How coincidental, almost like the island is testing them that way. Said that already, Jack and Locke finish packing the dynamite. They suggest they stagger it while taking them to the beach. At the cave, Sun asks Shannon if she thinks that the island is punishment for their previous sins. And before Shannon can answer, Claire says that there's no such thing as fate. And then part 2 ends with Jack, Kate, Hurley, and Locke transported the dynamite. Hurley asks Locke what he thinks is inside the hatch. Locke says hope. And then they have this brief moment where they're like, oh man, whoever called this the dark territory was onto something, End of part 2. And then, so I'll say this, like I said, there's a little bit of like an abrupt ending for part 2 because the way that they were aired a week apart. Part 1 was aired 1 week, and then parts 2 and 3 were aired back to back the following week. So it was aired as 2 parts. That's why there's a little bit of an abrupt ending here. And part 3 kind of immediately picks up right where part 2 ended, with the group getting attacked once again by the smoke monster. The smoke monster, again, Locke tries to do the thing where he stares right at it, but the smoke monster is not willing to acquiesce this time. It grabs Locke, drags him towards a hole. Jack goes after him. Grabs him right before Locke gets dragged into a hole. Locke tells Jack to let him go. Jack refuses. He tells Kate to grab a piece of dynamite from his pack, revealed that he put the dynamite in his pack, not Kate's, like was originally supposed to. They throw the dynamite down. It blows up. It temporarily causes the smoke monster to retreat, and they're able to save Locke.
And we actually see it.
And we actually see it. Yes.
It reminded me of Fart from Rick and Morty.
Yes.
It's like this hovering.
It takes more mass and form as time goes on, but for right now, you actually do briefly see it. Like I said, it's a wisp of black smoke, potentially tying into the pillar of black smoke that's been going throughout this episode.
But typical Lost, like we get an answer and then we have 3 more questions.
Exactly.
About what the hell it is.
Exactly.
Security system.
It
sounds like there's gears.
It sounds
turning.
like gears, machine turning. There's this whooshing noise. All that you see is smoke when you see it. It's like, what the hell
pulling
is
up trees out of the ground.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. What could it be? It could be anything. On the raft.
Literally, it could be.
It literally could be anything. It is truly up to your imagination. It's like what's inside the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. It's like, it's whatever you want it to be. Michael talks to Jin on the raft about him learning English. They have this nice bonding moment where they kind of put their previous rivalry to bed. Michael tries to give him his watch back that he took. Jin gives it back to him, says that it's yours. So that's like a great moment right there. You know, kind of Michael getting over the fact that Jin was so hateful towards him on the island, and Jin kind of putting away like so much all of his honor that he had put onto this one watch. Like I said, really,
I noticed
really,
that Jin has his handcuff on still
yeah.
from way back when. Like, has he had that the whole time?
I
Like,
guess so. I guess so.
well,
I guess he
I
never
haven't
let it
noticed
go.
it if he has.
Yeah, but like I said, just really, really, again, helping to tie these threads together into some really, really important, meaningful moments. In the caves, Sun gives Claire some tea and assures her that Charlie will bring the baby back. In the jungle, Charlie and Saeed are still pursuing Russo. Charlie, of course, sees the makeshift thing that he made, falls easily for one of Russo's traps, gets conked on the head with some, I don't know what those things are, but again, he gets pretty badly injured. Saeed is forced to use some gunpowder and kind of a quick split-second decision in order to heal him. Obviously, you know, it hurts quite extensively. In the jungle, Hurley is whispering the numbers to himself. Kate overhears one of the numbers conveniently that it's 23. She asks Hurley what the meaning is. Hurley's like, why? Why do you care? And she's like, the marshal, the guy who gave her up in Australia did it for a $23,000 reward. So that's just more so, I think, like more so like a little bit of a coincidence. And then we have our first major Jack and Locke
there
moment.
are allowed to be some coincidences. In
yeah.
this show.
It's really tricky in a show like this, but there are allowed to be some coincidences. But it leads to, again, another great Jack Locke moment where, again, we didn't get that for like a majority of this season, but obviously we got it really in the last couple of episodes, really since Boone's death. And you had Jack and Locke kind of going back and forth. You know, again, the man of science versus the man of faith. Jack confronting Locke about what happened with the smoke monster. Locke states that he thinks that he was being tested and that he doesn't think anything was actually going to happen. And the reason, and this is the first time where they actually bring up the man of science versus man of faith as far as why there's this constant tension between him and Jack. As far as Jack is the man of science, everything needs to be reasonable, everything needs to make sense, everything needs to have a logical, rational explanation, versus Locke, who is the man of faith, and believes that the path that the island is guiding them towards the hatch, and that's what it is. There's no sort of like kind of scientific reasoning for
and
it.
that's the name of the next episode.
Exactly,
Science,
and also how that's the whole reason why they were brought to the island. How the island, you know, brought them all there for various different assorted reasons. Jack asks if he talked to Boone about this, and John states that Boone was a necessary sacrifice that the island demanded, and that the path ends at the hatch. Jack disagrees, said that they're opening the hatch just so that they can survive, and that he doesn't believe in destiny. So once again, like some really awesome moments. And that's again the other thing too. It goes all the way back to Walkabout as well, all the way back to the beginning of the season, as far as why Jack and Locke's back and forth, their rivalry, is such an important crux for the show, as well as far as the driving force behind the show, because it shows that at times Jack is right, at times Locke is right, at times both of them are right, at times both of them are wrong. But it shows how it's this kind of greater examination of humanity, and how some of us, you know, are science-based, some of us are faith-based, some of us need logical, rational explanations to everything. Others are fully devout and fully believe in like the supernatural and fully believe in their faith and everything, when the reality, the true answer is, again, it's probably more so aligned somewhere down the middle. It's balance. You need both, you know? And again, it's kind of, again, one of the reasons why Jack and Locke kind of sum up, you know, everything that Lindelof is trying to explore with this show. The whole, like, again, is there a rational explanation for everything? Is everything faith-based? Or is the answer something a little bit more gray and in the middle?
And I think that goes back to a little bit, like Locke says, oh, Boone was a necessary sacrifice. That goes in a bit of his, like, his almost worship of the island that we discussed in his second flashback episode, where, well, I don't remember exactly what we discussed, but it's like he hasn't had this like parental figure, so
Right.
now the island is like what
Exactly.
he looks to, and then I'm sure that will be developed as we go into
Exactly.
the hatch and
As we
beyond.
saw in all of Locke's flashback episodes, again, he always seems to be a man who is searching for purpose in his life. Again, he doesn't really work a whole lot of he doesn't really have like a big-minded career. As we see, at least in this first season, he doesn't really have any romantic prospects. You know, the only parental figures in his life conned him out of his kidneys. You know, we see him working in a Toys R Us, like a pop-up store, or in a box company. Again, you know, he's paralyzed when we first meet him. Locke is somebody who is always kind of searching for purpose in his life. And so that's kind of, you know, you see that that's a big reason why he's willing to have so much faith in this island, because he's really never had anything to believe in. He's that character that's kind of looking for something to believe in ultimately. So They make it back to the hatch. They start laying the charges on the raft. Michael and Sawyer talk. Sawyer mentions his dad killing himself. Michael theorizes that he wants to die. The radar starts beeping, picking up something. Something is indeed out there. On the island, Saeed and Charlie get closer to the black smoke, but they find a signal fire. They're like, wait, that was it? They confront Russo, who has Aaron. Russo revealed that, of course, it's exactly like Saeed said. She wants her daughter back. Thought that if she gave them Aaron, that she would get him back. Charlie thinks that she was lying and that there never were any others. Russo says, no, she heard them whispering. She said that they wanted the boy. Of course, she thought that that meant Aaron, but of course she was wrong. And so that's kind of what causes again, a little bit of laying the seeds. We got a little bit of a switcheroo, and that's kind of what leads us into the big conclusion, which is, again, the hatch and the raft.
I would say, like,
yes,
there's nothing scarier than like a dark ocean and there's something be out there. Like, it could be right in front of you and you have no idea.
Exactly.
Like, they're on the raft. They have no light. They have the magical light of the guy behind the camera holding
of course,
holding a light. But even then, just the blip. Like, what is the blip? I thought it might have been the hatch or something, but no, it was something else. So
yes, and it's really, really good storytelling as far as how it laid the track. Where, again, this whole thing was kind of set in motion for Russo to try and make this deal with the others, but she kind of screwed up, assuming that they were after Aaron, when in reality they were after Walt. So once again, tying in all of these different threads that have been built up. Walt, obviously, again, potentially being this prophetic character, this seer who could, like, see visions into the future. Again, that was a storyline that they were unfortunately forced to drop because of how much Malcolm David Kelly grew behind the scenes ultimately. But on the raft, they see the boat. They think they're being rescued, but it's kind of this little dinghy, not really an official thing. It's kind of our first, proof showing that, like, okay, there were other of the others, besides Ethan on the island. You see a man in a makeshift beard, played by MC Gainey, well-known character actor, also known as the pilot prisoner in in Con Air, and then Boyd Crowder's dad, Bo Crowder, in the first season of Justified. Yeah, Con Air. He's the Diamondback or whatever. He's the pilot that's making all the really terrible jokes. That's the dude with the
it's been a while.
Tom.
It's been a while.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Yeah, you don't find out his name until season 3, but you eventually find out that his name is Tom. The others, of course, they take Walt. Sawyer goes for the gun. They shoot Sawyer. He falls off the boat. Jin dives in order to grab him. They knock Michael off the boat. They light the raft on fire, and they take Walt. And unfortunately, their attempt to get off the island has been waylaid. Meanwhile, back on the island.
And again, about the raft, like I mentioned this a while back, like, you can have all the polar bears, all the smoke monsters. Nothing will be scarier than other people that want to do harm.
Exactly.
Like, and what do they want with these kids? Like, I can't.
What do they want with Walt? What do they want with Walt? Only time will tell. What's it called? And exactly like you said, it's the Walking Dead argument. Back on the island, like I said, everybody's happy. Back in the caves, they're all reunited. Charlie gives Aaron back to Claire. They have their brief little body moment. Shannon reunites with Saeed. Sun kind of looks on. All that good stuff. Finally, back at the hatch, you have, back at the hatch, you have all of them starting to lay the charges. Jack basically talking with Kate, being like, listen, Kate, like, arguing why they took the dynamite, being like, look, Kate, once we blow open the hatch, he's like, I know, we're going to have a lock problem, and I need to know that you have my back. Hurley, of course, is getting over towards them, drops the flashlight, sees the numbers etched into the hatch, immediately goes berserk, haywire. He's like, no, we can't do this. We can't blow open the hatch. This is not a good idea. Once he sees the numbers, it's like, again, these stupid numbers that have been plaguing Hurley, causing all of this bad luck to follow him all the way to the point where he crashed on a fucking deserted island that may or may not even be in the time-space continuum, and he sees the goddamn numbers etched into the side of this thing that have been haunting him for fucking years on end now. And of course,
imagine
actually,
the psychological, just like,
oh my god,
like
I would have
shock,
had a breakdown. I mean, it's understandable why Hurley starts ranting, and he's like, no, stop. But of course, it's too late. They light the fuse. It goes off. The hatch blows. And our last
but
shot.
It wasn't too late because Locke hadn't lit the fuse yet.
Right.
You usually really contemplating it, like,
Yes,
and he thought, no,
but
I have to get this
he's
hatch
like, I have
open.
to. I have to. All the
I was like,
characters.
yes, for me as well.
For
you
me.
have to get the hatch
He's
open.
like, please get that fucking hatch open. You literally had characters die. We need to know what is inside this stupid hatch. And of course, that leads to the final shot of the episode, the tracking shot of Jack and Locke staring down as the camera goes down the ladder. Cut to black. Cut to credits, and that's the end of season 1. And it would leave everybody on a cliffhanger for 4 or 5 months until Season 2
Of
premiered
course,
later
they had
that
to
year in
like
2005. They
like
had to.
with
They
with a
had
show
to.
with a show like this is the cliffhanger
Exactly.
show.
Of course
I
not.
feel
Of
like
course, it is
more
the
than
show.
any other.
The reason why we have cliffhangers in TV is because of this show, you know? Like, Sopranos never did cliffhangers like this, you know? Sopranos would do a cliffhanger, and then it would forget about it and just do something odd. And then, like, a couple episodes into the run, it'd be like, oh, yeah, that did happen. And then they would just acknowledge it and move on, you know? This was the show that deliberately left, like, cliffhangers, being like, oh, yeah, like, this is what's gonna happen, you know? So, yeah.
And they only had to wait, you say, like half a year.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, because
then
this was at the time where we knew that we would get TV shows back at a certain time in the year, you know? Obviously, you know, if, you know, you would run your September to April or May run in the spring, you would have your winter break, and then you would have, you know, they would break for the summer, and then they would come back in September. And that was how TV was for years, you know? And then cable, obviously, and HBO, you had the show run one time at the year, and then you would just have to wait a little over a year about it. Now, sometimes shows end, and you never know if and when they're going to come back, you know? We fucking waited 3 years for Severance to come back, and it's great, but it's like, wow, 3 years. Thanks, you know?
yeah,
Oh, man. So that's it.
I really love that last shot. Like,
Yeah,
it
it's an
gives us
incredible
an
final
answer.
shot.
It gives us an answer, but not like the answer. Like,
Exactly.
okay, it's a ladder. What does it lead to? And
Yes.
then season 2.
Exactly. Real quick, because you and I haven't gotten a chance to talk about this. What's it called? You know, obviously we got to talk a little bit about our boy, one of our boys, Christopher Nolan, and this ever expanding Odyssey cast. Well, first of all, you and I never really got a chance to talk about the fact that Christopher Nolan is doing the Odyssey for his next movie, and kind of what a shift that is for him. You know, him going from somebody who primarily stuck within the sci-fi route before going straight biopic, albeit existential biopic for Oppenheimer, and now he's making the shift to going into straight hardcore fantasy. He's working with some newcomers. You know, he's working with Tom Holland and Zendaya for the first time, but for the and Charlize Theron and Lupita Nyong'o for the first time. But the rest of the cast is people that he's all worked with before: Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, what's called Robert Pattinson, and then recently they've been announcing some new additions. John Bernthal, who he's never worked for.
I need to hear John Burth like, let me ask you something, Poseidon.
Yeah,
Just
no,
like,
it's let me ask you something, Poseidon. There's never let. It's always the.
let me tell you something.
Let me tell you something. John Leguizamo, who I believe he's never worked with before. Benny Safdie, after they worked together in Oppenheimer, and then they just recently announced again an Inception reunion, albeit with a little bit of a twist. Elliot Page coming back to work with Nolan for the first time since Inception. Himesh Patel, who he worked with in Tenet. Bill Irwin, who he worked with, was the voice of Tars famously in Interstellar. One of my favorite voiceover performances from that year.
People are saying just put Tars in as Tars.
Honestly,
I'll be
I'd
fine
be
with
down.
it.
I'd be down with it, honestly. My hope, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I'm hoping that he makes this like a true epic. Like in the wake of like Ben-Hur's and Lawrence of Arabia's and the Ten Commandments, where this is like the full like 4-hour long movie with the intermission. Like you said, the movies are only getting longer. You know, the movies are only getting longer, and I really think this could be it. This could be like his longest movie yet. I really do think that. So I think the first half will be
unlike seemingly the American education system, I was not taught this in school, but like the day after they announced, I went out and found it. So I'm gonna read it soon
definitely
enough.
It's definitely worth reading. I read it when I was in. There's a reason why this is kind of like the pinnacle of all of like the Greek myths that I have learned about. So yeah,
and
naturally,
he's shooting on location. People are already theorizing how he's gonna do
the monsters with practical
the monsters
effects.
Like it's gonna be like a stop motion kind of thing.
I'm wondering, and this is my take. I'm wondering if he's gonna do it more of like a. Ironically, it's kind of interesting how we're bringing this up, talking about this with Lost, right? I'm wondering if he's going to do it like where it's maybe a thing of where it's like, oh, were these monsters and these gods, were they even real? Or are they just figments of Odysseus's imagination, and it's all just kind of PTSD? Because the whole thing is this voyage is Odysseus trying to get home after he fought in the Trojan War, right? And he's one of the only survivors of the Trojan War. The character of Odysseus does appear in the movie Troy with Brad Pitt, ironically played by Sean Bean. You know, a delicious irony there being that Sean Bean, who is known for dying and everything, plays the one character that survives that movie, you know, in a movie that pretty much kills off every one of its main characters. So yeah, so I wonder if he could do something like that, where the Cyclops and all the monsters that he meets along the way could just be figments of his imagination. So I'm wondering if he's gonna do something like that, you know. But either way, again, if you put Nolan's name on it, I'm there for it day one, obviously. And again, and I love how too, again, he's doing the thing like he did with Tenet, like he did with Oppenheimer, where again they're announcing the official movie and the release date a year in advance, and just. I'm like the ticking clock.
You're hearing
it's back
reports
on.
about sets being built in Morocco,
and you're like the clock
Italy.
is on. I have the date etched in my calendar, July 17th, 2026. I gotta wait a year and a half for it. I don't care. I will wait every day for it, just like I did with Oppenheimer. Will this make my number one in the year like Oppenheimer did? I don't know, because again, Oppenheimer was really kind of the seminal moment in Nolan's career. I don't know if the Odyssey will be that, but like I said, this is his 13th feature film. Yes, Tenet was 11th, and Oppenheimer was 12th. So this will be his 13th feature film. Man, I'm there for it. I am so there for it. Opening day. I cannot wait.
What freak Robert Pattinson is gonna play.
I can't wait. It's funny because first I'm like, oh, Robert Pattinson is the Cyclops, but then he cast Benny Safdie. I'm like, oh no, Benny Safdie is the Cyclops. I don't know who Pattinson's gonna play. I can see him play one of the sleazy suitors who tries to seduce Odysseus' wife. Either way, like I said, I'm there for it day one. This is an incredible cast. I cannot wait to see.
But you do think it's going to be Damon as
Yes,
Odysseus.
I do.
And
I think
Tom
it's Damon.
Holland as,
yeah, those are two that I'm convinced
something.
of. Is Damien is Odysseus, and then Holland is his son Telemachus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
convinced
all the gods and freaks
Hathaway, I'm
from
convinced, is his
Beethoven.
wife. Zendaya, Charlize, and Lupita are like the different feminine roles. One of them is probably going to be Cersei. One of them is going to be one of them is going to be
Athena?
Cersei. One of them is going to be Athena, and one of them is going to be Calypso. What's it called? It's going to be those three, and then the rest of the cast, I'm like, yeah, they're going to be like the assorted cast members and such. Again, there's even a sect of this where they go to the land of the dead. The Odyssey is wild. It truly is like one of the seminal.
It's like the story.
It is the story. Yes, it's like one of those things. If you are into fantasy, adventure, like really storytelling of any kind, the Odyssey is one of those seminal things where it's like you have to read it. Like you have to. It is crucial reading that I recommend. But yeah, so that was it. That's Lost season 1, man. Like I said, we're taking a 2-week break. We're doing the Super Bowl trailer reactions next week. Even
Fantastic Four, seemingly.
Exactly.
confirmed.
Well, I was about to say
we knew it was happening.
Yeah, but now they're dropping the trailer before the Super Bowl. So I was like, what was the point? You could have had a Deadpool moment and dropped during the Super Bowl. Now you're just dropping it in Good Morning America. It's like, okay, I don't know what the point of that was. So okay. Yeah,
I'm guessing there's gonna be.
Yeah, there'll be some
I
Mission
heard
Impossible,
a new Mission
F1,
Jurassic
World. Jurassic
has
World
to
will be
I
dropping
think
it. Yeah,
that's
that has
too
to be
big
the new
not
one.
to.
Exactly. And all the other different Super Bowl spots. I'm looking forward to potentially some TV spots as well, because like I said, we've got a lot of different things to look forward to this year. Actually, now that I have it, let me. Where the hell?
Squid Game.
Yeah, Squid Game Season 3, we already have a release date, but that's not really one of the ones that I'm looking forward to as much. Where is my list of TV shows? So, like I said, we have release dates for this quarter for Invincible, the final 5 episodes of Cobra Kai, Yellow Jackets, White Lotus, Daredevil, Righteous Gemstones recently got a release date, Wheel of Time Season 3, Last of Us is set to premiere in April with no release date yet,
Finish the game.
Andor final season. Final season, and then the shows that we are still kind of waiting for release dates for, The Bear season 4, Chad Powers, that Hulu show with Glenn Powell.
I'm definitely watching that.
Yes, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Hack season 4, Monarch season 2, Gen V season 2, Alien Earth, we could get a teaser for that. Wednesday season 2, Black Mirror season 7, Blade Runner 2099 on Amazon. Overcompensating, which is the Jonah Hill produced show on Amazon. Murderbot on Apple TV Plus, which is Alexander Skarsgård's show that he's going to be in. Wycaro 339, which right now is the is the working title for the new Vince Gilligan, Rhea Seehorn show for Apple TV Plus that they were working on, which is set to premiere sometime over the summer. Black Rabbit on Netflix with Jason Bateman and Jude Law. Criminal on Amazon. Neuromancer on Apple TV. The new animated Avatar Earth, which is set to be premiering on Paramount Plus. And then, of course, the rest of Taylor Sheridan's shows, as well as a couple of shows that have already premiered that I'm looking forward to watching. The Pit on Max and American Primeval on Netflix. So either way, we're shaping up for a pretty big year for content after kind of the disaster show that was 2024. Will the pendulum tip more towards movies or TV shows? We are going to find out. But be sure to join us next week for our Super Bowl breakdown as we break down kind of all the trailers, all the new things that we're dropping. We may also talk about, again, some of our.
Can we talk about the game, the actual Super Bowl?
We may
very briefly. I'll watch it.
We may, but honestly, once I saw that the Chiefs were doing it for another round, I'm like, I don't care.
And it's the Eagles as well.
It's the Eagles. It's like, I don't care. I don't care one bit. You know,
Hitler versus Stalin. Like,
the first 2 years, it was like, okay. You know, the last interesting Super Bowl we had was in 2022 when it was the Bengals-Rams, because everybody was kind of rooting for the Bengals. But yeah, ever since
that's the one I fell asleep during.
It's just been like, it's been the Chiefs every year, and it's like, okay, we get it, they're gonna win. And after how badly the Bills got screwed, it was like, okay, like, is there some foul play going on? Like, they keep making it this far, everything is good, and it's like, it's beyond just being choke artists. So yeah, we'll see.
That's why the trailers are there for us.
Exactly.
The common man.
The trailers are there for us. You know, we were finished with wrap up for January. Now, like I said, this is the beginning of what we're going to get in 2025. And my fingers are crossed that it will be a better year for content than 2024 was. I think it will be. But, you know, like I said, I've been a sucker for hope before. So, like I said, this is it, people. 2 weeks, and then we'll be back with season 2. Luke, it has been an honor and a privilege recapping season 1 with you. I cannot wait. Obviously, we'll see each other next week for the Super Bowl, but I cannot wait to begin. As like I said, we've gotten all the setup out of the way. We know who these characters are. Now, the real journey begins with Lost season 2 in a couple of weeks. Where can the good people follow you on the interwebs? And how's that top 10 list coming along?
I had a busier week than expected. First semester back in school, so I may record it today and then edit it throughout this week. This episode has given me some oomph to keep going. But look, reviews on YouTube. I don't know. People are subscribing. I don't really know why.
I'm telling you, man.
Nothing new has been. It must be this because I keep reminding.
It must be. It must be. I'm telling you. I think this is like the most consistent thing that you've done so far, and I'm telling you, the shit pays off. It works. It really, really does.
I mean, the show's consistent, so the podcasts are going to be consistent.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just excited to see what is inside the hatch.
Oh,
is it a tunnel that leads to a bunker that's transmitting the numbers? That is my initial prediction.
We shall see.
For now.
We shall see.
And maybe there's something freaky inside. I don't know.
It could be. It could be. But as you guys know, you can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV podcast across all platforms. It has been so much fun recapping this season. We will see you guys in 2 weeks for the next episode of Talkin' Lost.